If you like our video, click the button to subscribe to our channel and get easy access to new content. To see our full suite of ad-free video courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides, visit us at www.teachucomp.com. Superficially, adjustment layers and fill layers have many of the same options normal layers have. They have many of the same layer opacity and blending mode settings. However, adjustment layers let you apply a layer over an image element to experiment with color and tonal adjustments in the underlying layers within a Photoshop document. Keeping the adjustment in a separate layer lets you apply adjustments non destructively without permanently altering the pixels in the underlying layers. By default, an adjustment layer affects all layers below it. This lets you correct multiple layers with a single adjustment layer, rather than individually adjusting each layer. While adjustment layers let you apply photographic enhancements, fill layers simply fill a layer with a solid color, pattern, or gradient. If needed, you can also edit the layer mask that is also applied along with the adjustment or fill layer to change the intensity and or location of the layer's adjustment or fill effect. Before you create an adjustment or fill layer in Photoshop, make your desired layer selection in the Layers panel. If you select a blank layer in the Layers panel in Photoshop, and then create a fill layer, which are the solid color, gradient, and pattern choices, then the fill effect is applied to the selected layer, and a layer mask is also applied to that layer. Otherwise, Photoshop creates a new fill effect layer above the selected layer. In contrast to this, Photoshop always creates adjustment layers, which are all the other choices in the menu, as new layers above the layer selected in the Layers panel. If no layer is selected in the Layers panel, then the new layer is instead added to the top of the stack of layers in the Layers panel. To create a new fill or adjustment layer in Photoshop, then click the Create New Fill or Adjustment Layer button in the toolbar at the bottom of the Layers panel and choose the layer type to create from the menu that appears. Alternatively, select Layer, New Adjustment Layer, or Layer, New Fill Layer from the menu bar, and then select the type of adjustment layer or fill layer to create from the side menu that appears. Then set the fill or adjustment layer's properties in the dialog box or properties panel that then opens. The following list shows the effects of applying the various types of fill layers and adjustment layers in Photoshop. We will cover applying the adjustments in detail in a later chapter of this tutorial. The solid color fill layer applies a solid fill color that you select in the Color Picker Solid Color dialog box to the new layer. The Gradient Fill layer lets you select or create a gradient to apply to the layer using the Gradient Fill dialog box that opens. The Pattern Fill layer choice lets you select or create a pattern to apply to the layer using the Pattern Fill dialog box that then appears. The brightness contrast adjustment layer lets you adjust the brightness and contrast of the underlying layers using the sliders that appear in the Properties panel. The Levels adjustment layer lets you adjust the tonal values in an image by adjusting the levels histogram data that appears in the Properties panel. The Curves adjustment layer lets you adjust the tone curves to fine tune the tonal ranges using the curves data in the Properties panel. The Exposure adjustment layer lets you select an exposure preset or change the exposure using the sliders that appear in the Properties panel. The Vibrance adjustment layer lets you adjust the color vibrance and saturation using the sliders that appear in the Properties panel. The Hue Saturation adjustment lets you select which colors to edit and then specify new values for the hue, saturation, and lightness settings in the Properties panel. The Color Balance adjustment lets you adjust the color for a selected tonal range by using the drop down and sliders that appear in the Properties panel. The Black and White adjustment lets you select a preset or use the color sliders to apply a custom black and white effect or colorization in the Properties panel. The Photo Filter adjustment lets you select a preset or apply a custom color in the Properties panel to adjust the color balance and color temperature. The Channel Mixer adjustment lets you select a preset or manually adjust the hues of a selected color channel using the drop downs and sliders in the Properties panel. The Color Lookup adjustment lets you select a color mapping preset from one of three color tables in the Properties panel to change the underlying colors. The Invert adjustment inverts the colors within an image based on the brightness values to create a photographic negative. The Posterize adjustment lets you apply a flat poster like effect to an image by reducing the number of brightness levels in the image using the slider in the Properties panel to reduce the number of colors. The threshold adjustment lets you set a threshold level for the image in the Properties panel to render the image in monochrome with no gray, so you can locate the lightest and darkest areas in the image. The gradient map adjustment lets you select a gradient and set the gradient options in the Properties panel that map underlying pixels to the colors in the selected gradient. The selective color adjustment lets you select a primary color and then selectively adjust its appearance using the Process Color sliders and options in the Properties panel. Remember to click the subscribe button to see more of our videos. See our full suite of courses, instruction manuals, and quick reference guides at www.teachucomp.com.